And we continue at 1:06 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wings in Culver City.
John, in case you are wondering how Antonio Villaraigosa's gubernatorial campaign is going, he's begging for money on Instagram like he's on OnlyFans.
Hi, this is Antonio Villaraigosa. I'm asking all my supporters.
What's with the PSA music under it?
They're all playing that music underneath themselves now.
Hi, this is Antonio Villaraigosa. I'm asking all my supporters to chip in, to give whatever you can give, but as much as you can give.
Whatever you can, including if it bankrupts you.
Tomorrow, June 30th, is the deadline for this period. And it's really important that we give because we got to make California affordable again.
You know how we make California affordable? By blowing all our credit cards on this jackass.
I wonder if he got invited to the Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez wedding over the weekend.
We need a proven problem solver to take on the challenges that we're facing in this state.
Cliche.
Not you too, Antonio.
He's the OG.
I'm ready to do it.
In more ways than one.
I'm ready to do it, but I need your help. Thank you so much.
So if you want to see Tony stay in the race, you got to give him money.
If he was invited to that Bezos-Sanchez wedding, I bet you he would go table to table raising money. And he'd start at whatever table involved all of the rich Chinese businessmen. I love all of the people trashing that wedding, saying it was so gross, and had they been invited, they wouldn't have gone. Had I been invited to that wedding, not only would I have gone, I would have gotten there a couple of days early. I would have brought them a gift purchased from Amazon, most likely a salad shooter. And I would have sidled right up to that open bar. And because this is the wedding involving a billionaire, you know they're not going to be serving any well liquor at that wedding. Oh, no. No, it's going to be Dom. It's going to be Johnny Walker Blue. It's going to be all the finest wines. And after I sidled up to that bar, I don't think I'd leave. And how about the people with the trays walking around with the hors d'oeuvres? Most weddings you go to are like going to Costco around 11 a.m. on a Saturday, which you can now go to an hour early if you pay for the upgraded membership, where they serve things like pigs in a blanket. Maybe on occasion you get, I don't know, a shrimp, but usually it's the Pizza Hot Pockets. Shows you the class of wedding I typically attend. But not at this wedding. I bet you, Randy, they had the finest caviar. I bet you they had lobster. I bet you they had king crab. I bet you they had some of that Wagyu beef. What do they call the expensive sushi? The Toro?
Oh, Bluefin Toro.
Oh, yeah. I bet you they had that, too. You know, one of the people who was attacking that wedding was Rosie O'Donnell.
Oh, your favorite.
Yeah. She self-deported to Ireland, you know. And she wasn't even here illegally. She just realized that everyone hates her. She went on the internet and said... And she wrote it like a poem, like an E.E. Cummings poem. Have you ever seen those before? The Bezos wedding. It turned my stomach, seeing all these billionaires gathering in the gross excess of it all. The show of it. Is Oprah friends with Jeff Bezos? Really? How is that possible? He treats his employees with disdain. By any metric, he is not a nice man. As if she is. And by that, I don't mean a man. I mean nice. And his fake fembot wife, who looks like that, why would he choose her? After the salt of the earth Mackenzie sold his soul. Is that what it looks like from here? The devil is smiling at all of his conquests. I also sense a hint of jealousy, don't you? Going after Lauren Sanchez like that?
Is she jealous of Bezos or jealous of Sanchez?
Well, why would he choose her? Meaning, I guess she's got a better choice. Maybe she's offering herself up. The door could swing both ways. But she's acting like she doesn't even know her, which is funny. Because you do know that at one point, Lauren Sanchez was up for a job on The View. You ever hear that story?
Oh, please tell us.
Okay, so they had an open slot on The View. And Rosie O'Donnell wanted Lauren Sanchez for that job. I know this on very good authority. And at that time, Rosie O'Donnell and Whoopi Goldberg were both on at the same time. And that was like having Iran and Israel in the same room. Those two hated each other, and I assume hate each other to this day. So the moment that Rosie O'Donnell decided she wanted Lauren Sanchez for that job, Whoopi Goldberg found someone else and decided that that's who she wanted. And then the two of them got involved in a battle of wills, and neither one would back down. And the people who ran that show didn't know what to do because you had two stars in open warfare with Lauren Sanchez and the other woman as the proxies. And it went all the way up the food chain to Bob Iger to make the decision. And Bob Iger decided that if both of them wanted their own toy, he had to break both of them and bring in a different toy. And that's how they ended up with Rosie Perez. But for Rosie O'Donnell to go on the internet and to pretend like she didn't even know who this woman was, that's rich. Boy, she really must not have a lot to do over there in Ireland, because all she does is opine on the internet day and night. I guess if she's sitting over there in Dublin somewhere, she's not making a sequel to the Flintstones. What are you going to do? Angry Rosie.
Get that out of your system?
I got it out. Every so often, I just have to take a gratuitous attack on her. I don't like the cut of her jib. All right, moving on. California Governor Gavin Newsom now has a lawsuit filed against the Fox News channel.
He wasn't getting enough attention, and so he did something on Friday that got him all kinds of press coverage. For more, here's ABC 7 in the Bay Area.
Governor Newsom is suing Fox News. He's accusing the network of defamation for how it covered a phone call between him and President Trump. And as reporter Josh Haskell explains, the amount the governor is suing for has a bigger meaning.
And Mr. President, when is the last time you spoke with Governor Newsom?
A day ago.
That was June 10th when President Trump was asked about the ongoing immigration raids in Los Angeles. Governor Newsom responding on X. There was no call, not even a voicemail. Americans should be alarmed that a president...
Wait, this is all over that he said a day ago, but it was really 2 days ago?
And didn't Newsom get caught lying about being on the phone with Joe Biden during the fires?
Americans should be alarmed that a president deploying Marines onto our streets doesn't even know who he's talking to. The night of June 10th on Fox News, anchor Jesse Waters played an edited clip of Trump and accused Governor Newsom of lying.
And, of course, Gavin was watching it with Cabernet in hand.
Because that's what he does at night.
Gavin, who loves to talk about how the reason he does the things that he does is because he's got 4 kids and wants to make sure they grow up in a good world. Every night at 7 o'clock, he's not spending time with his kids.
No, he's blowing a point, too, watching Fox and Newsmax.
The banner on Fox News read, "Gavin lied about Trump's call." Newsom is now suing Fox News for $787 million.
You know what this reminds me of? That old episode of Married with Children when the Bundys were involved in those frivolous lawsuits. And Al came into the courthouse wearing a neck brace. And Peggy had the sunglasses on and she pretended to be blind and that Buck was the seeing eye dog. That's the kind of lawsuit we're dealing with here.
Governor Newsom is bringing this suit in part to make a legal claim and I think in part to make a political claim. And
it's to get attention.
Yes, because If he's not on the front page of the paper, he's not happy.
You often see that when it comes to defamation suits. I think Newsom, like any other public official, is facing a bit of an uphill battle here. He has to show that there was a false statement of fact and that it was made with actual malice.
Newsom's legal team says the governor will drop the suit if Fox News retracts its claim.
Who's paying for the lawyer?
Oh, I'm sure we are, or I'm sure he's paying for it with money that he raised for a political campaign. But now that he's termed out of office, if he raised it based on the state standards, he has to spend it on frivolous things like this.
Newsom's legal team says the governor will drop the suit if Fox News retracts its claim and Waters gives him an on-air apology.
Fox, the Murdochs, the news at Fox National needs to get its act together.
You could also stop watching it.
Oh, no, he can't do that.
And act in an ethical way. They haven't in this instant, and they're dead to right on this lawsuit. It's crystal.
Gavin has said that about a lot of lawsuits that have not gone his way lately.
How many times has he lost in court recently?
It's been quite a bit.
On this lawsuit, it's crystal clear. They crossed that line, and they defamed me.
So he maintained his good name until that one episode of Jesse Waters, huh?
And again, this is over a call that happened on January 7th or June 7th that Trump said happened on June 9th. Wow, that's a big one right there.
He's acting like a catty junior high school girl.
In a statement, Fox News said Governor Newsom's transparent publicity stunt is frivolous and designed to chill free speech critical of him. We will
Oh, that's ridiculous too, but sure.
No, he's Al Bundy. That's what the answer is.
We will defend this case vigorously and look forward to it being dismissed. This lawsuit is similar to President Trump's lawsuits against news networks, also for defamation. The amount of money Newsom is seeking is also the same amount Fox paid Dominion Voting Systems over the network's coverage of false vote rigging claims in the 2020 presidential election.
Josh Haskell, ABC 7 News.
So there was Gavin Newsom's latest attempt to ignore his day job and get on the national press.
And for the record, these lawsuits are basically impossible to win if you're a public person. I don't know if you remember this, Randy, but that pathetic campaign consultant, Mike Madrid, went on social media one time. I think it was X. And it was after one of my columns appeared in the Orange County Register. And he quote tweeted it. And he accused me of running a scam PPE company that took the state of California for hundreds of millions of dollars. And I remember reading that going, well, that's interesting. I don't recall ever having done that. And I told him, you must have me confused with someone else. That's not me. And he doubled and tripled down, claiming it was me. Now, just to put this in context, me being accused of running a PPE company that stole hundreds of millions of dollars from the state of California would be like me accusing Randy of kidnapping the Lindbergh baby. I don't even know where to begin to defend myself because none of it's true, so where do you even start? Could you imagine me, a businessman, legit or not? I could barely add, subtract, multiply, and divide, let alone run some kind of genius business plan where I'm the mastermind and we steal hundreds of millions of dollars from the state.
All we would have to do in court to win that case would be play video of when we need to call tech support because you can't connect to the radio station.
So I called a couple of different lawyers and I said, hey, I don't know what kind of following this guy has. He was with the Lincoln Project at the time. So I assume he was surrounded by interns. And I said, I don't know what kind of following this guy has, but I don't want the public thinking that I stole hundreds of millions of dollars from the state of California. I cover the state of California for a living. That will damage my reputation. What do we do about this? And to an attorney, they all said, you're a public person. There's nothing you can do. He can say whatever he wants. It doesn't matter. And he never retracted. He never apologized. He never corrected the record. And I basically had no standing. So you're trying to tell me that he can come out with a claim that is provably false, and once he was told that it was false, double, triple, quadruple down, I have no case. But Gavin Newsom, the sitting governor of California, thinks he has a case worth hundreds of millions of dollars against the news organization that is the crown jewel of News Corp, the Fox News Corporation, and he's going to sue them over allegations that they made saying that he spoke to Donald Trump on the phone on a particular day when he claims he didn't. He's a buffoon. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you missed the first hour and you want to find out just exactly what you missed out on, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's the Apple Podcasts app, iHeart, Spotify. Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe, download all the episodes, share them with your friends, your family. If you're in Facebook groups or next door groups and you're talking about local politics or crime, share the shows there. Get everyone that you know on board and listening to this show. Otherwise, John and I will be broke and have to eat M&Ms for a living.
No, peanut.
Did you see this story where a father jumped into the ocean to save his young daughter after she fell overboard from a Disney Dream cruise ship on its way from the Bahamas to Fort Lauderdale? There's video that shows both of them being rescued after the father was seen treading water for upwards of 20 minutes.
Whoa.
And what's odd about this story is usually when someone goes overboard on a cruise ship, that's the end of it. You don't survive. But in this particular case, not one, but two of them went overboard, and both of them survived. What's crazy to me is usually it's drunk idiots that go overboard, not children.
Do they serve open bar and all the booze you want on the Disney cruise, too?
I don't think they do. I don't think they do drink packages, and I don't think they have a casino on Disney.
Well, then you're not going.
Of course not. Girl went over. Dad went over to save her. Both of them survived. But the worst part of the story from the point of view of the little girl, she never got to see the Little Mermaid. Right now, it is my pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. She is the professor of political science emeritus at California State University at Fullerton, Professor Barbara Stone. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Phillips.
Let's start out by talking about this lawsuit that the federal government is now bringing against the state of California, city of Los Angeles, for sanctuary state, sanctuary city policies, where they say that what the state of California is doing is not in compliance with a federalist form of government where federal supremacy reigns, and the state just can't opt out in terms of cooperating with the federal government if the federal government wants to enforce federal law. Are you surprised that this lawsuit came up against the state of California and the city of Los Angeles? And what do you think is going to happen?
I think it's about time somebody did this because there are areas in which federal supremacy is real, and immigration is one of them. And the argument by the city will be it's not that we're doing anything, it's we just aren't cooperating. Well, they get over into obstruction of justice. I'm no lawyer, but you can't tell me. But that's what they're doing. And this needed to go through the courts. What's interesting, of course, is where it's being filed. Now, it has to be filed where it is in the Central District because that's where L.A. is. But let me point out to you that presumably it's going to be driven by your friend, I'll call it, Bill Asili, because he's the acting U.S. attorney here. I will assume he takes the lead. If they try to replace him from Washington, they're foolish, because he's both really hard-nosed and he knows what's going on in California. And, John, they're going to have a hard time finding a halfway decent court, okay, trial court. At that point, assuming, well, no, because these guys' minds are made up in advance, you then appeal to the Ninth Circuit. Used to be, I'd have said the same thing about the Ninth Circuit, but while in California, Trump's first administration really didn't help us much at the trial level, they helped us at the Ninth Circuit level. And you have some panels that have all kinds of Trump appointees running around them. And then, of course, you have the Supreme Court. This seems to be a truly big question that needs to be answered. What California and LA specifically have done needs to be slapped down, and I think it's a great thing. Now, we may lose, in which case we're wrong, and that's where it goes. But someone should have done this years ago.
It seems like their argument in favor of it is, well, we've been doing this for a long time and have been getting away with it, and the population just expects this to be the case, so who are you to tell us to change?
Yeah, tough, huh? Basically, well, who we are is a Republican administration with a quite aggressive Republican U.S. attorney here. You know, John, I believe what I'm about to say. I don't think it'll have any relevance in court, though one never knows, because you're going to have arguments about, oh, my heavens, you're just upsetting everybody. You're breaking up families. Look at the evil things this policy is doing. What, of course, their policy is doing is forcing ICE out into the community. ICE can't wait for the criminals outside the court building. They won't turn them over. ICE can't wait for the criminals outside the jails. They won't turn them over. And so they go out into the communities, and I assume they're mostly looking for bad guys, but the bad guys hang out with other folks of questionable immigration status, and you can't just go, well, I'm just going to find the bad guys. You grab them all. So the one responsible for a lot of what's happening are, in fact, the immigrant advocates who have set up this system, which I believe and sincerely hope will be found to be illegal on LA's part, but that is just bad for many of the people that they're moaning about. I don't know, but liberals, honey, tend to do that, so, you know.
What do you think drives that impulse? Because it seems like there are a lot of interest groups out there that take the most extreme possible take on their side, and they make that the litmus test. It's like, for example, with gay rights. Donald Trump is certainly the biggest gay rights supporting Republican president that has ever assumed that office. And even compared to many of the Democrats, he certainly stacks up well. But if the litmus test is, well, you need to defund ICE and use that money for sex change operations for illegal aliens and prisoners, well, you're never going to get him to sign on to that. And that's just not going to happen with any Republican. But if that's the litmus test that you create, then you're going to find enemies where you could find friends. It seems like with the immigration people, they take the most extreme aspect of their argument, which in this case is we don't want to deport prisoners and we don't want to deport inmates because that's breaking up families. And that is the hill they're willing to die on. And that makes no sense to me.
Okay, let me try something strange that may not resonate, and who knows. In thinking about this, I think about in fact, I was talking to a friend today about this, that what I've always regarded as liberal do-gooders and that now have gotten to be much harder ideological activists, that they sponsor, they believe, they promote issues, however you want to put it, that actually hurt the people they think they're helping. Except I'm wrong to state it that way because they don't think they're helping. The closest I can come, and as I say, it may be a little wacky, but look at Hamas in Gaza with the Palestinians. Because of what Hamas is doing, they're killing all kinds of Palestinians all over the place, because you hide under hospitals, you hide under schools, you're going to kill a lot of people. And you should ask, does Hamas feel bad about it? John, as far as I can tell, the answer is no. It's unfortunate these people are dying, but they're dying for the higher cause. And, of course, we then get into waiting for virgins in heaven. But here, it's not as far off as you might think. There are principles. There are causes. And, in fact, for a number of these people, it really is a cluster of causes on the left, and the individual cause doesn't matter very much. It's a matter of causing civil unrest and whatever. But the bottom line is, for the greater cause, if we have to sacrifice some people, that's okay. And I think more people than you want to believe in the movements on the left believe that, as long as they're not the ones being sacrificed.
Of course. We're speaking
yeah,
with
you can't have that.
Professor Barbara Stone, Professor of Political Science Emeritus at California State University at Fullerton. They just had a vote in New York City. The mayor's seat is up. Eric Adams wants another 4 years. He lost the Democratic primary to a socialist candidate who is not a socialist candidate in the mold of what Republicans accuse people like Bill Clinton of being, but in the mold of the government should own the means of production. In fact, he flat out made that statement himself. He also wants to globalize the Intifada. He says that violence is a term that is really not easy to define, and says the DAs are frequently the most violent people out there, meaning the system is rigged and out to get certain populations of people. He wants the government to own the grocery stores. He wants the government in charge of the entire healthcare system. And it looks like in a democratic city like New York City, if the opposition can't get behind one candidate and unload on this guy in serious ways, that he's going to be the next mayor of New York City. What do you make of that result?
They deserve it. Okay, no, that's not true. One of my grandchildren is working there right now. So, let's start with it. By the way, he also said that he wants to tax whiter neighborhoods more than the others because, of course, you know how bad they are, which is interesting since if the people doing the analysis are correct, and I assume what they're looking at is results by neighborhood where they know the demographics of the neighborhood, it's the rich white people that voted for him. Minorities didn't vote for him. The people he's claiming he's going to make life wonderful for didn't vote for him. It's sort of like in our case where West Side rich people vote for Karen Bass, Jews, just because it's not going to really affect them and it sounds good and, they're off believing some stuff. I suspect the people in the lower brackets didn't vote for him because they really don't want Soviet-style grocery stores where you'll be limited, you stand in line, you do all these things. Yeah, it may be cheaper, but you aren't going to get much of anything. People can figure that out, which is why it'll be interesting if he actually gets elected. Now, the problem, and you brought it up, Cuomo says he's going to run as an independent. Wonderful. Eric Adams, who didn't, by the way, in the end run in the Democrat primary, says he's running as an independent. And then you've got Curtis Sliwa, is that his name?
Yes.
Who is the Guardian Angels, who is going to run. To beat the guy, somebody has, I doubt that you can get any of those guys out of the race. I might be wrong. What someone has to organize is, okay, who are you going to vote for second? Because they still have that list system, and you drop out until someone hits 50%. They drop out the lowest vote getter and then redistribute their votes based on who they put second. Someone needs to be working that hard, and they need to be working it so that everybody who supports I just use the three I named, puts the socialist dead last. So that you don't even remotely get to where he can get 50%. That might work. That's the only thing I can think of without being a New Yorker.
When this happened here in California, when Upton Sinclair ran for governor during the Great Depression, he ran a number of times, both here in California, I think in New Jersey as well, as the actual Socialist Party candidate, and he was always and also ran. And then he decided to run for governor in the Democratic primary as a socialist, but with the Democratic Party label and not the socialist label. And lo and behold, he ended up winning that primary. And his political worldview was very similar to this guy in New York City. And he frightened a lot of people. Now, the people that work in Democratic Party politics are more left-wing, usually, than the candidates. So FDR's people helped run his campaign, but FDR himself never endorsed the candidate. And, of course, FDR's son ran for office here in California around the same time as well. But what was interesting was the way the Republicans beat him back. The Republicans had a bad candidate who was the lieutenant governor, who didn't really have a lot of charisma, was one of these machine politicians that was just placed there. Merriam was the man's name. And it was really three different people who took control of that race. It was the Chandlers, who at the time owned the Los Angeles Times and were Republicans. It was William Randolph Hearst, who had any number of newspapers all throughout the state, including in the Bay Area. And then you had Louis B. Mayer, who ran MGM, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, and was a former chairman of the California Republican Party. And they just hammered this candidate over and over and over again in the pages of the LA Times, in the pages of the Hearst newspapers. Back when they used to play newsreels before the movies would start, he turned MGM into essentially a political campaign arm for Merriam and against Sinclair, and they just kneecapped this guy before every single movie that you saw in the state of California, and they were just relentless. And they took what would have been an easy Sinclair victory, and they beat that guy by, I think, double digits after they were done with him. Is that what's going to need to happen in New York, where you get someone like Murdoch and Bloomberg and some of the big power players, maybe even the Sulzberger family, if you can win them over, and you just turn all of those papers and all of those stations against this guy, and you beat him that way?
I'm sure that would help. That actually is kind of, in a way, John, a depressing analysis. Because remember, I wasn't here, so if I wasn't here, you sure as heck weren't here. But what was going on, California became a state around the time of the Civil War. Democrats were the party of slavery. You didn't have a Democrat governor of this state, with one exception, until Pat Brown. I think I'm right on that. And while they beat down, so you were one, your environment was Republican. Nobody can accuse New York of being a Republican environment. Secondly, what you got tied to, so I'm not quite sure how this works, was that, remember, Herbert Hoover was blamed for the Depression and he was a Republican. So you got some movement towards Democrats generally. And actually in California, while they did beat down Sinclair, as I say, the only Democrat to win the governorship in that period of time was, in fact, I believe, the next round. So the state was poised in that era, if it was ever going to elect a Democrat, it was going to elect them then, and they actually did just the next cycle. So I guess with all that sort of babbling, I would say that it would work, your analysis, except that it was working in a place that had been overwhelmingly Republican and that went back to being Republican. And New York is anything but. So believe if you got the press truly pounding, it would help. But I don't think they can make it happen. I think you have to have somebody, willing to work smart politically. As I say, I don't know enough, but I'm thinking the only place I could come up with it was, hey, go around and candidate by candidate, will you make me your second choice? And will you make him your third choice? Or if you hate me, make him your second choice. Just don't put the other guy anywhere near the top. That's the only way you're going to make it happen, but I don't know. John, on the one hand, oh, dear Lord, how could you turn a city like that over to that? But go look at Chicago. That's not that bad, but it's not as far off as you might think. The big difference there is the guy knows nothing and belongs totally to the teachers union. But it's going to be tough. He's the Democratic nominee.
Professor Barbara Stone, Professor of Political Science Emeritus at California State University at Fullerton. Thanks so much for stopping by.
My pleasure, John.
We've got one more hour coming up on the John Phillips Show. Ann Coulter joins us next. Don't you go anywhere.